Hey, hey, happy Friday! Welcome back to this walkthrough of Final Fantasy VI with me, jrpg. In the last episode, we made our way to the sealed gate to attempt to get the Espers to help us launch an attack on the Empire, but things didn't quite go according to plan. Kefka managed to follow us right to the Espers' doorstep, but things took yet another turn as the Espers went ballistic and attacked Vector directly, nearly destroying the airship in the process. We've crash-landed on the southern continent, so now it's time to find out what's become of Vector. But first, let's pop in the airship and heal up. We are a little bit beat up. And we'll take the full heal because it's here. And then just before we hit the road, we're going to, as usual, fiddle with our equipment just a little bit. We can finally use that assassin dagger and bump lock speed up to 49, which is really nice. And I think now I'm going to throw Terra in the back row. We could use the break blade instead of the blizzard, but I kind of like the magic power. So I think we're going to leave it as is. Okay. Now, I do want to get in one fight before we hop on a chocobo here, because we're all just about to level up, so let's make that happen quick. And we can take this opportunity to try to steal from the Ralph, but we're just going to get a tonic as usual, so let's just make this quick. And now, having released the Espers, we really don't know what it is we've done. And that's kind of been true every single time we've dealt with Espers. And so this trip to Vector comes with some trepidation, but there are those levels up and 1337 gil on top of it. That is neat. So let's hire a chocobo and hit the road. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the Chocobo song, but I feel like this music is wildly inappropriate for a trip with this amount of concern and uncertainty. Nevertheless, we're going to enjoy the tune, like I always do. But we're already here, so let's go ahead and hop off and see what's happened. And when we walk in, Vector, the capital of the Empire, is in flames. Look at this. And there are returners and nurse guards all over the place, so let's talk to them. The returner says, "What on earth?" And the nurse guard says, "What's going on?" And I'll tell you what's going on. We were expecting a battle, but what we got is more akin to a massacre. Although the Espers didn't kill very many people, most of the citizens ran off, but still, this is crazy. Arvis says it was like this when we got here, and yeah, we went to march on the Empire, and when we got there, it was already destroyed. And Bannon says, "What are you talking about? Talking with Espers?" And I don't really know why he says that, because this was kind of his whole plan. But anyway, let's go check out the Imperial Castle. Not defended by the Guardian anymore. And a sentry comes out to greet us, and he says the Emperor is expecting you. This way, and we get to mess with these sentries a little bit and make them teleport through people, so let's go ahead and do it, because I think it's just fun. There he goes. And now we get to enjoy the classic video game thing where the person we're following walks a little bit slower than us. But he's gonna say Emperor Gestahl waits inside. And let's go see what the Emperor has to say now that his capital has been burned to the ground. Let's talk to the sentries first. The power of the Espers, phenomenal. And this one says, "Peace at last." And now in order to mess with this cutscene, we just try to go through the doors, and the sentries will block us, but that's going to make them teleport through a couple of people in this scene. Gestahl says, "I've lost my will to fight." And here comes Sid. Sid says the Emperor has had a change of heart. "And Sid," we exclaim. Sid says the Espers came to save their friends. When they learned the others had perished, they went berserk and trashed the town. Never will I forget their shrieks of rage. The sentries say we're hanging up our weapons and armor for good. Gestahl says the power of those Espers. I had no idea. Now that can't possibly be true. He must have had some idea because his whole plan was to harvest them for their power, but he probably didn't realize that they might just have the power to end the entire world. And he says they'll shred the world. We must get them to understand that we are no longer at war. Sid says no human's going to make them sit down and listen. There he goes. Gestalt says, but for now, my friends, let us feast and rejoice. Sid says there are some people here who'd prefer to keep fighting. Please, before we dine, talk to as many soldiers as you can. Make them understand. One more teleport there. And the trooper says, please talk to as many soldiers as you can. You have 4 minutes until dinner. And that is true. We are going to be under a 4-minute time limit. And believe me, it's a little bit tight. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in this section. We're on a hidden point system for a reward that we'll be getting later. There are 24 total soldiers that we can talk to in this section, and each is worth 1 point. And 4 of them will attack us, and winning the fights is worth 5 additional points each, which means we can get 44 total points in this section, which we're going to do. And there are a few treasures, and I would recommend personally leaving them until later. You can always pick them up after the time limit, but we're going to do everything we possibly can in this section just to show that it can be done. Now, I would highly recommend you already have your sprint shoes equipped, because if you don't, there is no way you're going to get 44 points here. But let's get right to it. Now, the sentries aren't worth anything, so we're going to immediately head south, and I'm going to have to read real fast here. This one says Kefka's been imprisoned for unspeakable war crimes. He's on his last legs. This one says the war is over. This one's going to say the Espers that emerge from the gate are terrifying the Empire. And that one says we've lost our will to fight. Now let's immediately pop outside, and we're going to get in our first battle in just a sec. But this one's going to say I've slain too many people. I'll never live a normal life. This one says I heard you're the strongest of the returners. So just how strong are you? And this is going to be the Mega Armor. He's got 1,000 HP, and we can steal a potion from him. Now, I would not recommend actually stealing in this section like I'm doing, but we will have the time for it, although it's going to be really, really tight. The basic idea is that you should just be one-shotting these battles and moving on. But down goes the Mega Armor. And he's going to say, not bad, pretty strong. And this one's going to say, someone ought to thrash you, which sounds like he would attack us, but he does not. Now, this next room is just going to have a couple of treasures in it. The back guard, and an X potion. The back guard is a relic that will prevent back and pincer attacks. Now, this one says, when the Emperor learned that Kefka used poison in battle, he imprisoned the fiend. This one says, the Empire's talking peace now. This guy calls us Returner Scum and attacks. And this is the Commando. They've got 580 HP. And a tent is a common steel, and a mithril vest is a rare steel. But since Sabin went first, we're just going to one-shot him. We really, really don't have actually a lot of time to be messing around. Not bad, he says. Not bad indeed. Let's grab this tincture. This one says everything will be settled after the banquet. Now, I kind of lost track. Here we go. The Espers surely came to free their friends. That's 12. And the main thing to know about this room, this one says the Magitech research facility's been dismantled, is that you need 14 by the time you're done. And this is number 14, who opposes peace. Now, I initially thought that was a really weird piece of dialogue, like he opposes peace just as a concept, which is totally insane, but maybe kind of par for the course for a citizen, or rather a soldier in the Empire's army, but maybe he just opposes peace with the returners. And he says some people fight harder after they're cast down, and that's 14, so we're doing great. We are a little light on time, but hopefully the rest of this will go really smoothly. That's easily the most difficult room in this entire thing. This one says the Empire will never die, and I hope that's not true, but maybe it is. Kefka's scum serves him right. That is a fact. And this one says you're not wanted. Well, that's a shame. I'm here anyway. The war ended before we could use this machine. Now, that's not actually true, right? Like, it attacked the airship, but that's okay. Kefka's in jail. He sure is. We're going to be seeing him very shortly. This one says you deserve a thrashing, and he's going to attack as well. Chance to get his heal off, why not? I will definitely take some tents and potions and whatnot. Look at this, we're already down to about 50 seconds. We gotta move it. You're strong. Maybe you really can defeat the Espers. But here's the thing, we don't really want to defeat them, we just want to reason with them, but it may actually come to that, we don't know. My whole family was lost in the war, says this guy. That is a shame. It's interesting that some of the members of the army have definitely suffered. Espers who've dreamed they were that powerful. Well, maybe we did, and maybe Emperor Gestalt. Let's grab that Gale Hairpin. We'll talk about that in a sec. We'll never knuckle under, this one says. That's 23, and the final one is in here. Kefka, using poison. How low can you get? I've always hated you. Grab this Revivify, and then let's go check out the final cutscene in here. We should have exactly enough time to get there. And Kefka is in fact in jail, and he says, how dare they put me in a place like this? I don't believe this. What a bore, he says. And that's it. And now it's time for the Imperial Banquet. That evening, the banquet with the Emperor took place. The trooper says, "This way, please." And Sid says, "You can count me in as a returner." We like Sid. Gestalt says, "Imagine, all of us here together sharing a meal. First, we must have a toast." Now let's talk a little bit about what's going on in this section as well. We also are on a point system in this section. Now there are 93 total points we can get, and all of your answers to the things that happen here are going to be worth from 1 to 5 points. Meaning we have a couple extra points to spend, but we'll talk about that in a sec. For now, I will just tell you what each of the point values is worth as we go. So, to the Empire is going to be worth 2, to the Returners 1, and to our hometowns 5. Now, it's hard for me to find a through line for how you could kind of logically reason what the best answer might be. The best I can come up with is that you want to be diplomatic, but firm, if that makes sense. Anyway, let's take the 5-point answer and say to our hometowns. Gestalt says, "Well then, to our hometowns." Gestalt says, "As you know, Kefka's in jail for war crimes. What shall we do with him?" And leave him in jail is worth 5, pardon him is worth 1, and execute him is worth 3. Now we could play perfectly and say leave him in jail, but as I said, we only need 90 total points, so we're going to spend some of our extra points because we were perfect in the last section to demand Kefka's execution. Gestalt says, well, let's let him stew in his cell for a while, then we'll decide what to do. I truly apologize about the poisoning of Doma. No one dreamed Kefka would use poison. And now what's done is only worth 1, that was inexcusable is worth 5, and apologize again is worth 3, so let's say that was inexcusable. Which it was. And Gestalt says, "I'm so terribly sorry. Kefka's being severely punished, and we're cleaning up the poison. By the way, with regard to General Celeste, and was she an Imperial spy is the smooth brain answer, that is worth 1. One of us is worth 5, and we trust Celeste is only worth 3, and I was trying to figure out why that might be, and the only thing I can think of is that we didn't trust Celeste, at least Locke didn't, if only for a moment. So anyway, let's say she's one of us for 5 points. Gestalt says Kefka was lying. General Celeste realized the war was stupid before anyone else. That's why she joined the Returners. Any other questions for me? And now we have to ask at least one question, but each of these is worth 2, so we're going to start with why'd you start the war, and we're going to ask him all of them. Gestalt says, my desire for power got the best of me. Now I've come to my senses. With your permission, I'd like to talk about the Espers. And one more question, please, because we want all these points. Let's ask him, why do you want peace now? He says, I feel we need each other's help at this time. And one more question. And why'd we have to talk to your men? Gestalt says some of my men refused to embrace peace, and we did experience that for sure. I felt they'd understand if they actually met you face to face. And now you want to be really careful here and not ask another question, because if you repeat any, you will lose 10 points. So let's go ahead and talk about Espers. Gestalt says, my empire's been decimated by the Espers that emerged from the sealed gate. They're acting spiteful. Unless they're stopped, they'll rip the world asunder. And now, yes, the Espers have gone too far, it's worth 5, but you unleash their power is only worth 2. So let's say they've gone too far, which is true, like, we don't know how far they're going to take this. They are pretty upset with all of humanity because Gestalt showed them how awful humanity can be. Gestalt says after the Espers went on their rampage, I knew I couldn't go on with my war. I asked myself why I had started in the first place. By the way, about those questions you asked me, which did you ask first? Now, if you get this right, it is worth 5 points. And so let's tell the doddering old man what question we asked him first. Gestalt is right. Anyway, more than anything, I want peace. That's my true dream. I want you to understand that. And Sid says, you seem a bit tired. Care for a rest break? And yes, we do. And the reason is because we can fight the special forces and get 5 points for that. Sid says all will be put right if we can achieve peace. And Emperor Gestalt is not going to have anything to say, so let's talk to the sentries. We want to test your strength. Won't you fight with us for a couple minutes? And let's tell them sure. Now the special forces each have 700 HP. And they are pretty laughably easy. But we're going to try to steal from all of them because they have a tonic as a common steal. Now, obviously, 3 tonics is not super exciting, but we need to fill the time somehow here. They are really no threat at all. The only real threat is the timer. So this one is not nearly as tight as the Talking to Soldiers section. Now, to talk about these guys a little bit more in depth, they do have a special command called Blow, which will deal their regular damage times 3. And you can win a Magicite from them 1/8 of the time. I am currently maybe regretting a little bit min-maxing this as much as I did. Once again, the reward is only 3 tonics, but I feel like why not if you've got all this extra time. But we do want those 5 points. Oh, we won a Magicite. Wow, that's awesome. Anyway, the trooper says just as we thought. Yep, we are crazy strong, buddy. Now let's go ahead and get started again. Shall we begin again? Yes, we shall. Gestalt says, is there anything you wish to hear me say? And that all you really want is peace is worth 3, that your war is truly over is worth 5, and that you're sorry is only worth 1, because he has said sorry like 100 times. So let's say that the war is truly over. Gestalt says, I understand. I've ordered this war to be over. Now I must ask for a favor. He says, after they devastated my empire, the Espers headed northward, toward Crescent Island. They must be found. We must tell them that we're no longer their enemy. After all that I put them through, it is up to me to set things right. That is why I need to borrow Terra's power. Only Terra can bridge the gap between Esper and human. We must make for Crescent Island aboard the freighter from Albrook. Will you accompany me? And this is a false choice. We have to accompany him no matter what we say, but if we pick yes for the first time he asks, it will be worth 3 points, so let's go ahead and do that. Gestalt says, I'll have my finest warrior accompany us, General Leo. And it's General Leo. We like him too. Leo says, I'm General Leo. Nice to meet you. Sabin says, didn't I see you at Doma? I'm sure I did. So that was General Leo. Leo says, you're Cyan, liege to the King of Doma. Please forgive me for not being there to stop Kefka. Cyan says, that wasn't your fault. Leo says, I'll be waiting for you in Albrook. And Gestalt says, we must find the Espers and come to terms with them. You're our last hope. Locke says, if Terra goes, I'll go. Terra says, Locke, thank you. Locke says, the rest of you wait here. I smell a rat. Edgar says, agreed. It's hard to trust the Emperor just like that. Cyan says, we'll stay here and investigate. Locke says, please do. Leave no stone unturned. Edgar says, right, and you be careful. And the banquet is over. We've achieved peace, however suspicious it may seem. Sentry says the war is over, and I sure hope so, but it definitely feels strange. But here comes the Sentry to give us our reward. A message from the Emperor. Because you were able to talk to so many soldiers, you are to be rewarded as follows. And this will be a series of things, but this is the best reward that you can achieve. Imperial troops have withdrawn from South Figaro. In addition, our troops have also pulled out of Doma. We hereby give you the right to take any weapons you desire from the Imperial base to the east near the sealed gate. And that's right, we can finally raid that treasure room. And this is from the Emperor himself. We get a Tintinabar, which is nice, but you know, nothing super exciting. Your behavior at the banquet was impeccable. Please take this as well. And we receive a Charm Bangle, which is a relic that will allow us to have 25% fewer encounters. It's not great. Well, and there he goes. Now let's talk to our friends. Edgar says Elbrook's a port to the south of the Empire. A Magitech armor-holding ship plies the waters between there and Crescent Island. We'll penetrate the Imperial base, you deal with the Espers. And if we pop over here, we can talk to Cyan. And he says, never will I be able to forgive Kefka, nor should you. We don't want to approach Kefka's cell, because we'll just have to sit through that cutscene again, so let's head up to the roof. Majesty, it says. General Leo's waiting in Albrook. Please head for Crescent Island and look for the Espers. Alright, we are all done inside of here, but there are still a few more people I want to talk to before we leave. So let's go ahead and head outside. And look, it's Sabin. Sabin says, can we really trust the Empire? I have an awful feeling about this. And yeah, it does not feel like we can trust them, but we don't really have a choice. Arvis says, makes sense. Can't just forget about Espers. And that is why we don't have a choice, because we did in fact unleash them, and we don't know what other destruction they're going to wreak upon the world. Bannon says, could Gestalt have meant such a thing? Team up with the Empire to track down an Esper. And the Returner says the war. It's over, right? And I sure hope so, but something tells me we're not done with this story. And Narshgard says we didn't have to do a thing. The Empire's troops just ran away in terror. Now there are a couple more party members that I want to talk to before we leave. And they're going to be in here. There's Gao. And Gao says, smells like Parents' house here. Why so familiar? And I actually don't know the answer to that question. The only thing that I can think of is that cafes in Final Fantasy VI are actually bars, so maybe it smells like alcohol in here and his parents were drunks? That's really all I can think of. And Mog, of course, just says Kupo. You're doing a great job investigating, Mog. You keep it up. And that's everything that I want to do in here. However, they didn't mention it as part of the reward, but one of the things that happened is that the Imperial troops have also pulled out of Miranda and Zen, so let's go ahead and check that out. And I think while we're walking, we can go ahead and try out the Charm Bangle. But as you'll see, a 25% reduction is really not that noticeable, but I would like to hear what the citizens of the liberated towns have to say. We got a little torn up there. Walking around with a two-person party can be very, very dangerous. So you do want to be careful out here. Now let's see what the citizens of Zen have to say, but this is why I don't really like the Charm Bangle, because now I gotta put the sprint shoes back on. It's kind of a hassle for seemingly a very small upside. I think that's maybe the last time I'll use them. Our poor kids will be back soon, won't they? I sure hope so, lady. And this woman says, thanks to you people, peace has been achieved. And I do feel pretty good about that. I mean, it's suspicious, but there are some tangible benefits. This kid goes, "Why, I want to play outside." And I hate to be the one to break this to you, kid, but you are playing outside. This guy says the world seems to be getting back to normal. And I believe this guy had to say it before, but I like this line. Got any juicy gossip? In fact, I do. The Empire has been defeated. Time to put Zen back together. And that is pretty nice, right? The Imperial troopers are gone. Now we can live in peace. And now it's time to take a chocobo down to Miranda. Chocobo ride for 100 gil, you got yourself a deal. Now, I promise that we are going to go raid that treasure room. I'm excited to do that, but there is something that I'm even more excited about for this section. Now, you may recall that we talked to everybody in the party while we were at Vector, but there was one person missing. And that is your clue that this cutscene exists, but this is probably the most missed cutscene in the entire game. I'm not gonna lie, the first time I saw it was practicing for this video, and I think it's pretty cool, and kind of a shame that most people probably missed it, because it sets up a little piece of story for a little bit later. I think it makes it work a little bit better story-wise. But I'll shut up about it now. Why don't we just get right to it? And that's gonna be right through here. Sid says, "Wow, what a ship!" And Setzer replies that landing really messed up the engine. It'll take a while to fix. Sid says, "I'll help. No machine can stump me." And I love the way that Setzer's like crawling around in the engine underneath the walkway there. It's so sweet. Setzer says, "Don't touch anything." Sid says, "Go kill time in the casino. I can speed this crate up." Setzer says, "You little... get out of my sight." And Sid says, "But I could really make this thing hum." Tara says, "You love this ship more than anything, huh?" And Setzer says, "Actually, when I was young, there was something I was mad about." Tara says, "Huh?" And Setzer says, "In my youth, I dreamed of having the world's fastest airship." Tara says, "You mean..." And Setzer says, "At that time, there was a young girl who piloted the Falcon, the fastest vessel ever made. Sometimes we were the worst of rivals, but other times we were the best of friends. We always egged each other on to go faster and higher. When she disappeared along with her ship, I felt like I lost my spirit." Poor Daryl. And that's the end of that cutscene, but man, is that cool. Setzer says, "Repairs aren't finished yet. We better take the boat from Albrook." And that's exactly what we're gonna do. But first, we gotta raid that treasure room. We'll go ahead and grab some refreshment here, and let's hit the road again. Now, the first thing I want to do is pop in Miranda and see how the townspeople feel about having their town liberated. And look, the soldiers are gone. And no more dogfighting. Isn't that amazing? That's probably the best thing we've done so far. This guy says we must begin to rebuild. And this one says when peace was reached, the soldiers left our town. This woman says that boy made to serve as a soldier has returned. However, he says, "I was forced into the Empire's army. They made me do some awful things. And even though he's back, he may never be the same." This woman says, "The Imperial troopers are gone. Let's dance, let's sing." But this woman feels a little bit different. She says, "I feel a little down, probably because she doesn't have her soldier boyfriend to antagonize anymore." But now, it's finally time to hop on a chocobo and go raid that treasure room, and I am looking forward to this. So let's spend yet another 100 gil and hop on a chocobo. And one of the things that's interesting to me about the Southern Continent on this playthrough is how much there is to do here, and how much traveling around on it you have to do. It can feel a little bit cumbersome at times, but in a way, I think it's pretty cool, and at the very least, there are these conveniently placed chocobo forests to make it a little bit less bad. but if you did want to walk, maybe the charm bangle would come in handy. That's probably the reason they give it to you at the time that they do, but I really don't like it. I don't like having to constantly equip it and unequip it. And speaking of world map relics, let's talk about the Gale Hairpin, because I didn't get a chance to up until now. It's a relic that will double your chances of both preemptive and side attacks to 25% and 44% respectively, so you can sort of see a dungeon or world map build with your relics where you could have a back guard, a Gale Hairpin, and the Charm Bangle to reduce overall encounters and make them favorable when they happen, but the micromanagement there is a little too much for me, but it's definitely something you could do. Now finally, after staring longingly at these treasures, we can open them all. Now unfortunately, this is going to be a little bit anticlimactic, but we get an X potion, a cherub down, a flame saber that's in this little furnace, 13,000 gil, a wall ring, which is kind of nice actually, 8,000 gil, a cure ring, another back guard, an elixir, running shoes, which is kind of nice, an ether, 20,000 gil, and hidden in this corner is an elixir. And the gil is probably the best part. We're back up to 70,000, which is nice because we did spend all of our money on Espers, which is totally worth it, but being broke sucks, which I know all too well. Alright, now one thing I should mention is that you really want to avoid this desert because, as you may remember from before, there are fossil fangs lurking in that desert, and with only a two-person party, they can zombie both of you. And if that happens, it's an actual game over. This one says, look out if you're caught working with the returners. I don't think he's gotten the memo that the war is over. But this one has. Now maybe we can get on with our lives. This guy says business is picking up in the port. Maybe economy will make a recovery. I'm sure he means the economy, but let's move on. I heard some Espers flew out of the mountains near the base and thrashed the troopers there. You heard right, buddy. And this guy says, and they're such tightwads, they're raking in the cash. And this one says, wouldn't want to be in their shoes, though. Alright, let's stop in the cafe. And I love the way the music has changed now that the soldiers have left. I think it's a really nice touch. This guy says, since the soldiers are leaving, business is bound to pick up. Oops, better keep my mouth shut. Yeah, even though we're at peace, you probably still want to watch it. Now when we come out here, we can head almost directly to the port. And these two soldiers say all's well, and I heard the Espers attack the Empire. Now as we head in, we don't want to miss this warp stone hidden right in here. And this soldier will tell us General Leo's waiting for you. So let's talk to everyone else first. This one says the Magitech armor is being refurbished. And he's going to tell us, stay clear of the engine room, it's dangerous. This guy says once we find an Esper, we'll be able to restore peace. He is very optimistic about that. We actually have no idea if that's going to work or not. And now this guy says General Leo is holding a meeting, and he's my favorite NPC in this entire area, and maybe in the whole game, and you'll see why in a little bit. But let's talk to General Leo now. General Leo says, there you are, another of the Empire's generals, and a person I hired in town will be traveling with us. And look who it is, it's Celeste and Shadow! Leo says, let me introduce General Celeste and Shadow. And Locke looks surprised. Leo asks him, is something wrong? And Locke says, no. Leo says, our departure isn't till tomorrow. I've arranged some lodging for you. Leo says, please get some rest. And Tara says, Celeste, but Celeste doesn't reply. And Celeste just runs from Locke. And Locke says, Celeste. And Shadow says, I'm working for the Empire, but don't worry, I'm not going to garrot you. Let's say hi to Interceptor. And Leo says, please get some rest. So let's go do exactly that. And the innkeeper says, General Leo told us about you, by all means. So we get a free stay at the inn, which is very nice indeed. And in the middle of the night, Locke wakes up. And I love these nighttime scenes. Oh, man. And the music here, just pay attention to the melody. Locke says, Celeste. Come on. Why won't you speak to me? Even if it was only a little, I doubted you. But I'm still your friend. Celeste. Oh, it's so good. It reminds me a little bit of Edward's nighttime scene in Final Fantasy IV. But it's time to hit the road. Let's talk to this guy one more time. General Leo is holding a meeting. And what it is it's like a malicious compliance type of thing where I feel like General Leo told him to tell people, I'm in a meeting, but he just says it no matter what's happening. It's the best. Leo says, right, let's go. Soldier says, all systems A-OK. Leo says we should arrive tomorrow morning. Why not rest until then? Leo says, you all right? Looks like you're feeling better. Terra says, funny, isn't it? I was used by the Empire, even had my thoughts ripped from me. But here I am cooperating with the enemy. Leo says, people are people. Not all of us are like Kefka. And Terra says, what? What's with you? And Leo says, I knew you were being used as a kind of biological weapon. And because I didn't do anything about it, I'm no different than Kefka. Terra says, I'm the product of a human and an Esper. Will I ever be able to love someone? And Leo says, of course. Terra says, but I haven't felt that way yet. Leo says, you're just young, but I understand what you mean. I understand only too well. Terra says, but I want to know what love is now. Who is it? Shadow says, thought I'd sleep out under the stars. Terra says, did you hear what we were just talking about? Shadow says, I didn't mean to overhear anything. Shadow says, I can't help you. You must look within for answers. Which is a very ninja thing to say, I think. Shadow says, Terra. In this world are many like me who've killed their emotions. Don't forget that. And now for some levity. Locke says, oh. 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 Think I'm gonna... And yep, he is feeling very seasick. Not a word of this to anyone else, oh shrouded one. Think I'm gonna... Yep, the world-renowned treasure hunter is having a little bit of trouble on the ship. But we are almost to Crescent Island. And this soldier says, rumor has it that the power of magic still exists on Crescent Island. And let's talk to the rest of the soldiers. We're almost to Crescent Island, he says. Once we find an Esper, we'll be able to restore peace. All right, let's talk to General Leo. And he says we're almost at Crescent Island. When we disembark, we'll split into 2 groups. Celeste and I will form one group. Terra, you go with Locke and Shadow. If you spot the Espers, report at once. And now let's talk to this guy one more time. General Leo's holding a meeting. I love him so much. Okay. Locke says, let's go. And Locke says, Shadow. And Celeste says, hey, Locke. But Locke isn't having it. He says, come on. And here we are, and we will make our way towards the town of Thamasa, but that's going to have to wait until next time, because I'm all out of time for today. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Final Fantasy Friday.